Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday Night Sports Guys. Glad to be back again. Here we are on a Tuesday night, still Sunday night, but we are here for week 4 of the National Football League. The National Hockey League begins its 2019-2020 season. And of course, tonight in Washington, the Major League Baseball playoffs begin, and the guys have it all covered for you to see tonight. So we are going to start. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Tonight, best time of the year if you're a sports fan. You guys agree?
I like the spring better.
Really?
I mean, geez, man, the spring is better. Baseball's starting, and then the hockey playoffs. Then you got the Masters, and you got March Madness. Myself personally, but I know that screwed up your narrative there, Duke. So I apologize. Yeah. But I mean, this is the second best part. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me just a lot of graphics to work with here tonight, so everybody bear with me a little bit. Oops, if you don't hit that right on there, good. There we go. Week 4, National Football League. And unfortunately, I didn't get to see a whole lot of Week 4, but I know you two did see a bit of it, especially the first game that we're going to cover tonight, in which we have our beloved New England Patriots. They were in Buffalo to play the Bills. And might I add, gentlemen, that I told you when we had our picks first of the season that if the Patriots were going to lose a game, I thought maybe they'd lose 3. One of them I thought would be in Buffalo. Now, I'm glad that they didn't lose because I'm not about trying to get my, predictions of that kind right where my team's concerned. But Buffalo did prove my point that, a lot of people talked about how they could have a top 5 defense this year. Ironically, what happens in the game and what we're finding out with our Patriots is that defense that we got, not only a top 5, I think it's the number 1 defense going today. So, Mac, I'll let you start first. What'd you take away from that game? Has Tom Brady finally, as Max Kellerman likes to say, is he falling off the cliff or is it just one of those games?
Come on.
We could have got through this episode without saying Max Kellerman.
Oh, man. Can he be the one we do not name ever?
Absolutely. He who shall not be named.
Yes.
No, I think Tom's just fine. Tom, I think our offensive line isn't as strong as we'd like. I think we were able to take advantage of some matchups early in the season. In Dante, we trust. I see Trent Williams out there in Washington looking for a new team, and I'd love Bill to work his magic and throw a third rounder towards them and get him to patch it. Because I worry against good to great defenses that offensive line just isn't good enough. I love our defense. I'd like to think that I was high on them when we were talking in the summer, and God, it's just every area of it. Winovich comes out there and does his stuff. The second coming of Collins. Hightower wasn't even on the field, and next man up kind of thing. So I don't know. To me, the Bills are good, but I would have liked to have seen Isaiah Wynn out there, more of what we thought the offensive line would be. Because I mean, Brady, he 0 sacks, but he threw the ball away a dozen times, and Edelman at 40, 30, 20, 10%, whatever he was at. It was a nerve-wracking game. But it's the W, and now we've got 3 or 4 more weeks to just kind of coast and keep building towards what really matters. Like with the Pats, I mean, we know the last few years, it's what they look like in December. This is just, I mean, I guess there was a real threat for some people out there that the Bills might be a legitimate challenger to the throne, but I think we've taken care of that.
Yeah. Well, I thought that if Buffalo had a chance, or teams of that kind were going to have a chance, Buffalo probably at home would have its best shot to do it. So, Blazy, obviously 16-10 is not the offensive output that they've had in some of the prior games, but I think we can agree Buffalo is a much better team than what they've faced so far. But in that game, are there some things still that you have a concern about that need to tighten up for the Patriots? Because we know Bill says after every game we still got lots of things to work on. So if that's you, what are you pointing out that's being concerning to you so far this season?
Yeah, I think certainly like T-Mac said with the offensive line, it's kind of a patchwork going on right there with a couple guys being out and things like that. I mean, Devlin was out, fullback being out. that doesn't help either. If he's in there, he might help with protection. Tight ends, I mean, Ben Watson will be back. He's more of a pass catching tight end, I guess, but it's always good to have a veteran tight end that could help out with the offensive line. So I think that's going to help. But yeah, that's the key, man. Buffalo's their legit defense, and Josh Allen, I think, is going to be a good, a really good quarterback at some point, and he definitely shows some signs of, excellence at times, and then obviously there's other times where he throws the ball to the wrong team. Now, our defense is great, and our, secondary is I think even better than the linebacking core, and these guys are unbelievable. Gilmore and Jackson, and McCourty's got 4 interceptions in 4 games. Got an interception a game. Like, who does that?
Wow.
That never happened. So, unfortunately, towards the end there, when I think it was Jonathan Jones that hit helmet to helmet on Allen there, which that was unfortunate. And hopefully Allen's okay. Hopefully he'll be back this week. But that was one of those, definitely not a perfect hit, but definitely something that you don't want to see happen. And like I say, hopefully he'll be all right. But yeah, I mean, you know what, Patriots, they did what they had to do. They got it done. I mean, it could have been a little more of a blowout. I mean, Brady threw a horrible pick in the end zone that could have really put the game away. And it's one of those things that he just, whatever he saw wasn't there, and all that was there was a white jersey. But you know what? Let's get out of there. It's September. I mean, when's the last time we were 4-0 in September? I don't know. I mean, we haven't had the toughest schedule, obviously, through the first 3 games. But, Patriots always seem to lay an egg lately, first 4 games or so. And, you know what? Out of there, we're 4-0 and got pretty much, we'll knock on wood, but should be a cupcake this week. And, and get ready to play some real teams here soon. But, you know what? I'm happy with it. You know what? If I can, as far as Brady, played against a great defense. Edelman was like Max said, could have been 10%. Gordon couldn't catch a pass. Let's chill out and we'll see what happens. But you know what, Buffalo, that was their chance, I do believe, if they were going to knock us off. I mean, how many times Brady going to throw 39 times for 150 yards or whatever he did, no touchdowns. You got to tip your hat sometimes. Buffalo's they got a good team. So we'll see what goes on. But we'll take it.
What's that? Go ahead.
I say we'll take it. We'll take the win. Get out of there.
Sometimes that's what it's all about. Next week in Washington, then kind of the resurgent New York Giants, which we'll get to a bit in the best of the rest segment, the Jets, and then Cleveland, Baltimore. So relatively, they should be 7-0 by the time they get to that Cleveland game, and Cleveland, I think, will be a better team at that point. So they'll start to get into some good football, and of course, that's their time of the year. November, December is when they start picking it up. So anyhow, I agree. We got the W, and we'll move on. So we are going to take them off the board. And, Blazy, we're going to let you talk to us a bit about the KC Chiefs and the Detroit Lions. Pat Mahomes wasn't the Pat Mahomes, not typical Pat Mahomes. But, I think he kind of impressed me, kind of like how the Patriots, defensively is what kept him in there and ultimately is what kind of won that game for him. I think it was a learning curve for the young kid last night because he was in against, a team that they really should probably have beaten fairly handily. But Detroit came in and played a real good game. Tell me a bit more about that because I know you watched pretty well all of it.
Yeah, that was, obviously that's an important game for us, being Patriots fans. I mean, it looks like it's going to be Patriots-Chiefs going down, trying to get that home field advantage and play each other later in the season. But, I kind of recorded this game because it was on the same time as the Patriots, so obviously I didn't watch all of it at the time, but I did watch it afterwards. And at first I was like, it's probably going to be over by halftime. But you know what? Detroit came out there. Everybody's been kind of laughing at Matt Patricia over the last couple of years, and he's done some bonehead things, but you know what? He's got that team going in the right direction, and with it, if not for blowing a big lead in Arizona week 1, they would have been 3-0 going into this game and beating the Chargers and the Eagles. So I mean, they came in there pretty legit, and they came out, guns blazing, got a lead. You know what? No lead is safe, obviously, against the Chiefs. Chiefs came back, tied up 13-13 going into the second half, and what a crazy turn of events or whatever. The kickoff. I'll try to do this quick. The kickoff to the Chiefs to start the second half, tie game. Chiefs fumble. Lions get it, take it down inside the 10, throw what everybody thought was a touchdown to Golladay in the back of the end zone. They review it for 5 minutes. They reverse it. Next play, Stafford fumbles. Chiefs get it back, go down a little ways. They fumble. Lions get it back, come back down. They got first and goal on the 1. Kerryon Johnson fumbles in a big pile. Everybody just stops. And the damn cornerback or safety or whatever goes in there, sees the ball on the ground, goes in there into the pile, picks up the ball, and runs 100 yards to the other end. So, twice Detroit should have scored a touchdown in that whole turn, in that whole sequence, and Kansas City ends up with a 20-13 lead. So, to give the Lions credit, they came back after that. They scored a field goal, they scored a touchdown, they went ahead. Chiefs went back ahead. Lions went back ahead, and like I said, Mahomes was down 3 with the ball, about 3 minutes left, 4th and 8 on his own 34, and the Lions played man to man, and everybody had their back turned, and nobody saw that the whole wide open, the middle was wide open. Mahomes ran it up the middle for 15, and ended up driving down to the end and scoring with 26 seconds left. But I will say there was a stupid play. I think Patricia. They're up 3. Kansas City's got 1 timeout left. They got the ball inside the 10, and they're going up to the line, rushing, either going to throw it or spike it. And Patricia calls a timeout. Now, I understand what he was trying to do. He's saying, well, if they score, I'll get the ball back. But I think he could have learned from I think Bill Simmons even said this on his podcast. Like, he should have learned from Belichick in that Seattle Super Bowls. Like, what? Sometimes if those guys are panicking, what? Let them panic and don't give them a chance to breathe. And gave them a chance. They did that twice, actually. Gave them a chance to run the ball twice and ended up losing the game. So it was unfortunate. The Lions played well. They, like you said about Mahomes, he still threw for 300 yards, but he didn't throw for a touchdown first time in a year. I think that he didn't have a touchdown pass. You know what? But that's what it takes, and they did what they had to do. But you know what? You got to give the Lions credit on that one. Nobody, I don't think, gave them a chance in that game, and they came out pretty tough. But it was a good game. It was a really good game. So I was glad that glad I got a chance to watch that one too.
Well, seeing as you did see both those, the Bills and the Chiefs. Detroit, who was more impressive in defeat, Detroit or Buffalo?
Well, Buffalo definitely more impressive on defense for sure. But I don't know. Stafford is, Stafford's one of those guys that I think he's, people overlook him, but he's pretty good, good quarterback. Been around for a while, and I think Detroit. The NFC is tough, obviously tougher than the AFC is the thing. I think Buffalo's got a better chance to make the playoffs just because the AFC after the first 2 teams is kind of a crapshoot, and the NFC is kind of solid, way down the line. So I would say Buffalo probably a better chance to make the playoffs, but you know what? Detroit was definitely impressive, and this running back, Kerryon Johnson, he's something they haven't had in a long time as a running back. They got a pretty good defense. Stafford is Stafford. He's definitely good. Golladay, these guys. So, they did show something for sure. And they've showed something. They've had a tough schedule. Like I said, they beat the Eagles, they beat the Chargers. Yeah. Their last 2 games, and those 2 teams are top of the league. So, I got to give the Lions credit. We'll see what happens from here on.
Right on. Well, Mac, you took the time to watch the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals game. I think your intention at first was because you had Kyler Murray in one of your fantasy leagues and things like that, so obviously a rooting interest in that. But I think there's a little bit of a story starting to materialize in the Northwest with Seattle. They might be a team, in the NFC, Philadelphia, Dallas, Rams, Saints, all getting a lot of the press out west, but that Seattle Seahawks team is little by little making its way in there. So, what did you see from out of that game?
I think you're onto something there, Duke. As a team that came up against our Patriots over the years, it's a team that's easy to not like. Pete Carroll's a tough one for me because sometimes I really like him. There's parts of me like, God, he'd be a fun. And other times it's just like, oh my God, he looks like a total idiot on the sideline. So I'm really Jekyll and Hyde-ish with him. It was an interesting game. As much as one play shouldn't turn it, when Clowney read the little screen pass, tipped it up into the air that everybody's probably seen in the highlights, and ran that in for a touchdown. It shouldn't have been that much momentum earlier in the game, but it truly felt like the game was over. Yeah. Seattle after that, they controlled the game. Carson, who'd fumbled, I don't know, seemed like he fumbled every game before then as a fantasy player. It looked like they've been looking for a reason to get rid of him. He had 100 yards. The defense was solid. I don't know. It ended up 27-10, but it didn't even really. The second half was kind of blah. Both teams, I believe, one touchdown in the fourth quarter. Arizona's field goal kicker missed 2 field goals in the first half too, which didn't help. 43 and 48. I mean, they weren't super long. So, and Kyler Murray, he's a work in progress. Like, boy, he can look fantastic sometimes, and then other times he looks like short, like me and Bladesy out there. Behind these lines and how
I don't think he looks like us.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm trying to.
He's a little faster than I am.
I remember the toilet bowls in the Clarks Harbor ball field and some of the football prowess we displayed out there. So, the one thing I wanted to say from the game for those that didn't watch is Larry Fitzgerald, number 2 all time from that game, and it made me think like that. And when Frank Gore ran for 15,000 against the Patriots. Those are a couple of amazing
accomplishments,
athletes that likely, well, Fitzgerald for sure, a future Hall of Famer, and I got to think Gore. Like, even hearing Gore has been the top rusher on every team every year he's played. He's been the top rusher on his year. He's 36 years old, and he was gashing that vaunted Patriots defense that we love. So those were kind of a couple of 2 thoughts. But to me, I think bottom line, Duke, how you started. Seattle's one of those teams that I just think isn't going to go away. And in the NFC, as wide open as it is, with Russell Wilson as your quarterback and a good defense, and if they have a running game, which they haven't had in a while, they've got as good a chance as any.
Well, their schedule coming up is definitely going to be a test of their mettle to find out where they're really going to, kind of fall into place there in the NFC. They got the Rams home next week to the Rams. Then they're at Cleveland, home to Baltimore, at Atlanta. Now, the Falcons haven't been anything spectacular yet, but down in Georgia, they generally are a little tougher team to play. So Seattle is definitely a team to keep an eye out for. Our old buddy Nate Lee, who was on the panel at once upon a time, big Seahawks fan. I'm sure he's kind of, happy so far with the way things are going. So it was definitely a game to keep an eye on. So we're going to move on from that one there, and we're going to finish up because I wasn't able to get a chance to look this over this weekend, but that will be changing moving on. We will go into what we like to call best of the rest, and there were some other interesting games on tap for the weekend. We had Cleveland at Baltimore, Dallas and the Saints, even last Thursday night, which is rarely a good night of football. It seems like the NFL shit games on Mondays and Thursdays for some reason, seems like always. Philadelphia and Green Bay. So, gentlemen, one other thing that you took out of the games this weekend that kind of stood out to you. Mac, I'll let you go first.
I'm gonna say 2 real quick, Duke. The first one is I have no idea what happened with Tampa Bay and St. Louis. With the Los Angeles Rams. My son called me for some fantasy advice, and I said, stay away. He was all over Godwin. I said, oh, my God, buddy, I don't think the Rams have given up a touchdown to the wide receiver yet this year. Stay away from them. Well, he was texting his dad later on, blaming me for his fantasy loss. So I'm going to give the Rams a mulligan on that one, but my God, Tampa Bay shouldn't have done that. My other comment has to do with Miami, and it was driving around listening on Sirius XM to a guy, I don't even know his name, but his take, like this whole Miami tanking, and he said, what are they supposed to do? He said, keep some of these guys and be a 5-win team, And it was just he had this really different. Like all I've heard is the tanking, and it's like, if they rip it up, they do something with their picks, maybe they have a chance to be an 8, 9, 10. Because otherwise, they're stuck kind of in this limbo of being 5 wins, 6 wins. It was I appreciated the different spin on it, and he was kind of pushing back on all the haters and saying they've got the picks. If they spend the money wisely, why does this have to be a tanking? Why can't it just be a 1-year rebuild? So that was spent a lot of time thinking about that and wondering if the NFL is different than, say, the NBA when there's tanking or some of the other leagues. Because, my God, we've been spoiled as Pats fans, but if I was one of those teams that's been 6 to 8, 5 to 8, 4 to 8 wins over 20 years, I'd be happy to have my team doing what the Dolphins are doing if we got a hope of breaking out of that mold.
Right. So, Blasey, what did you take from the other games that were on tap for the weekend? What kind of stood out to you in any of them?
Yeah, I just wanted to add on what Mac just said. Just thinking about Miami and stuff. And I mean, I know people are going to take this the wrong way, but obviously the Patriots are there at the top of that division. They're not going to, whether they're a 5-win team or an 8-win team or a 9-win team, they're not going anywhere anyway. So why wouldn't they blow it up as they are doing and try to build this thing for the next couple of years? Brady might retire. Maybe by 2030, they'll have a chance. Once. But anyway, but seriously, I mean, why not build that thing back up? I mean, it makes more sense, doesn't it? So, but, when they say about tanking, I mean, the players are obviously trying. You know what? The players are getting paid and they want another contract and they're trying. I mean, everybody says about tanking and that they're not trying, but you know what? Those players out there are definitely trying their ass off. It's just they don't have the talent. But, you know what, dude, this week was fucking shit show. I mean, to be honest with you, as far as all the, it was crazy. I mean, you talk about the Rams. I had 2 survivor pools. I got a little bit fancy and didn't want to pick the Chargers because I said, you know what, never know, Miami might get frisky down there, and that didn't happen. So I had the Rams on one and I had the Colts on the other, and I should have changed it, and I almost did when I found out T.Y. Hilton was out, but I said, no, that's okay. They'll still take care of business against the Raiders. Well, that's what happened. So here I am. No survivor left. Didn't pick the Chiefs. Didn't take the Patriots. What an idiot. Anyway, so that's my take from the week. It was, but what are you going to do? There's 13 teams, Duke, right now, 2-2. Yep. 13 teams, 2-2 in this league. There are 3 teams over 500 in the AFC: Patriots and Chiefs and the Bills. Yep. That is it. Everybody else is 500 or below. Yep. Like there's no sure things in this league, man.
Well, here's the thing to point out. Here's the thing I was going to try to add into the weekend, and more from just a notation, is the AFC South. All 4 teams are at 2-2. So here's a quick question to both you. We won't elaborate deeply, but here we are in week 4, and all 4 teams are at 2-2 in that division. Who do you have the most hope for moving forward to win that division? Just give me a team.
I'll still say Houston because I had them at the start. Okay. I'll still say Houston.
Okay, Mac?
I said Jacksonville in the beginning, but I'm less on that. If Mariota is a quarterback,
unreal.
If he can be like good Mariota, I'd say Tennessee. Bad Mariota, I'm going with Houston.
I'm going to go with Indianapolis just because, I don't know, I guess maybe Jacoby Brissett, former Pat. I know we talk about the Patriots a lot in this show, but hey, I mean, you know what? I got fucking Deshaun Watson in the friggin' fantasy pool, and he's killed me 2 weeks in a row here, man, that I could have had W's in both of them. I think I'm going to get one this week, but it wasn't because of him. So I don't know.
Their offensive line is so horseshit, right?
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Their offense, he's a good quarterback, man. He's just got to be protected a little bit. I don't know how bad they would have been if they didn't get Tunsil. I mean, man, it's still bad. But you know what? I still got to think they're the favorite. I mean, obviously Jacksonville's got a backup quarterback. Indy's got a backup quarterback, and Tennessee's Tennessee. So,
right.
But yeah, it's crazy. That's the NFL, man.
Yeah, there it is. So, okay, so we are going to add a new feature to our NFL segment. Blasey brought it up to us that maybe we should consider doing a top 5 power rankings. I'll be honest with you. I don't know. I won't speak for T-Mac, but I think between Blasey and I, we hadn't done a whole lot of power rankings and stuff in any of our sports. before, but it seems to be a popular trend with podcasts and different YouTube channels and things like that. So we thought we would just kind of add this in each week. We'll rotate around, take a turn naming our top 5, and kind of talk about why we've selected those 5 teams, and the other 2 will kind of chime in for it. So top 5, and Blazy, you started out with your number 5 pick being the Seattle Seahawks, which I have to say I was a little surprised when you said it. I know our good friend Nate's going to be happy again seeing his Seahawks getting mentioned as much as possible, but what kind of convinced you to put Seattle at number 5?
Well, I'll preface this by saying that the Rams have been my number 3. I mean, I've kind of done this in my own head last week. Well, actually last week, because I thought we were going to do a show on Thursday for one thing, but just kind of did it my own. And, the Rams were my number 3 the whole year. And to be honest with you, I mean, they only lost the 1 game, but I cannot keep the Rams in my top 5 after giving up 55 points to Jameis Winston at home. Just can't do it. I know it's probably just a one-off, but I had to knock them out of there. So, I looked around. The Rams are still right there. The Niners are 3-0, but they haven't really played anybody, and, on the bye or whatever. So just looked around. I thought the Seahawks was the team. You know what? The 3-1. They've looked. I mean, Russell Wilson's looked really good. They don't do anything great, but I think they're they've played well, and I think it's Seattle. But you know what? This could all change in 2 days. You said about the Thursday night game. It's the Thursday night games. We got another great Thursday night game coming up here because it's Rams Seahawks coming up here on Thursday.
Okay.
So that one's going to be that one's going to tell the tale. But I took the Seahawks. Like I say, the Rams and the 49ers were right there. The Ravens were kind of right there before they got smoked by the Browns. But Seahawks were my number 4. Or number 5, sorry.
Okay. So at number 4, you opted to go with the once upon a time America's team, the Dallas Cowboys, Skip Bayless's first love. So Dallas. Looking at Dallas, I kind of thought, I don't know why he's picking Dallas. I don't see that I don't see where their schedule has been so shit hot. Giants, Redskins, Miami, and then they lose on Sunday night to New Orleans. What got you to keep Dallas in the top 5?
Well, like I say, Dallas has been on my number 4 team for the last couple of weeks. Okay. You know what? They were undefeated. They weren't playing anybody. They're playing the Giants, playing the Redskins, playing the Dolphins. But you know what? They took care of business. It wasn't close games. They smoked all 3 of those teams. They went into New Orleans and they lost a close game. So for me, and you'll know by my next pick, I can't knock them down too much if they get beat by a better team in their barn. So as far as I'm concerned, I think Dallas is still the number 4 team. You know what? Zeke and their defense is good. I mean, we talked about it. There's a lot of close teams in this NFL right now. I mean, you can after the top 2, and people can put the top 2 in whatever order they want, depending on if they like the Patriots or not. After that, it's pretty much a crapshoot right down to 20. I mean, you could put there's 15 teams you could put in the 4 or 5 or even 3. So I mean, Dallas until they just losing by 2 in New Orleans, I don't think should knock them out of the top 5.
Okay, sounds good. So, speaking of New Orleans, you have chosen the Saints to be at number 3, minus Drew Brees, as we all know by now. But you know what? I think that's a team where Teddy Bridgewater just got to kind of, just don't go outside of yourself. Just kind of stay compact. What's your reasoning on the Saints minus Brees?
Yeah, well, that was the team that they weren't in my top 5 going into this week. But, with the Rams shitting the bed like they did, and them coming in there and winning after, winning in Seattle, which obviously that's never an easy place to play. No. The only loss they got was against the Rams, and that was when Brees went out. Bridgewater wasn't ready. They say the backup's always ready, but he wasn't ready. Mm-hmm. He lost to the Rams. 3-1. I had New Orleans actually winning their division at, I think, what do I got here? 13-3 to start the season, and I actually had them losing 2 of the first 3 games. So they've already gone outside. They've done better than that already, and Brees has been out for 3 games. So, Brees should be back. Probably 3 or 4 games. Bridgewater's definitely a good backup. like you said, he's not doing anything he can't do. He's managing the game. They've got a good defense. I mean, New Orleans, not a team that we normally talk about it having a good defense. And, after the Rob Ryan went in there and totally screwed everything up, they finally built that back up to being a good defense. And, I think the Saints, they definitely got to be the top team in the NFC right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Fair enough. So that's going to take us to the top two teams, both in which they reside in the AFC, and you have taken the Kansas City Chiefs at number 2, which should not really be a surprise.
I think that should shock.
Yeah. Obviously, we know what number 1's going to be now. Tell me the difference between Kansas City and New England as far as your power rankings. Why did you take KC second?
Well, I think Kansas City has had a little tougher schedule than the Patriots through the first 4 games, I guess, if you put it all in totality. But, New England just killed the first 3 teams, obviously. Mm-hmm. Kansas City killed their first 2, and then, they let the Ravens off the hook. Some people think Baltimore is good. I'm not 100% sure Baltimore is good or great anyway. So I think number 1, you know what? Patriots, you gotta go by everything you know about these teams. And right now, the Patriots are the defending champs. They beat Kansas City the last time they played each other. Okay. They both got the same record. They both look above and beyond everybody else. As far as I know the AFC in general is worse than the NFC, but definitely those top 2 teams, I don't think anybody has any problem with saying that the top 2 teams are in the AFC. So I think right now you just got to say, guess what? You know what? Until one of them gets knocked down, that's what's going to happen. They're going to play each other in December, and that might tell the tale.
Right.
I don't know. It's not rocket science. It's just watching it.
Right on. Well, that's not a bad top 5 at all. Mac, is there anything you would change in any of that? Is there somebody you might drop and bring into those top 5 or alter where they're each standing? How do you think he did?
Please do it. Come on. I know Mac wants to bring in somebody that's 1-3. I know he does.
No. You kind of stole my thunder a little bit when you said 15 teams. I was going to say there's those 2 and then a 12-way tie for 3rd kind of thing. I thought for sure Duke was going to somehow squeeze Pittsburgh up there in the top, especially after destroying Cincinnati last night. But I can't see my screen's blurry. I can't tell if those are Bruins jerseys or Steelers jerseys that I'm looking at. So, other than that, no, I think you did a fine job, Bladesy. I just think those 2 teams separate from the rest, and I think you ask 20 people, the next 3 could be 3 different teams by the next 20. There's wide open.
It could be, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would say, if I was going to, and I guess I'm grasping for straws here, but there's 2 teams I think I might consider at the 5th spot. San Francisco's 3-0. Simple as that. I know Seattle's got the extra game on them. They were on a bye this week, but I kind of would I might hedge my bets with San Francisco on that, depending on how a game with them and Seattle went. And maybe Chicago. Maybe. I don't know.
With Trubisky being out, that might hurt. Or maybe it will help.
Yeah.
It might help. So we're not sure.
I hear what you're saying about San Francisco, Duke. My only thing is I have no clue about their defense.
No.
If they could have a good defense.
Yeah.
And if they do, and Garoppolo is what we think he is with Kittle and some up-and-coming receivers, good running game, but I have no clue what their defense could be horrible, and I wouldn't be surprised. So.
Well, they're kind of like in the same boat with Seattle. We were talking about Seattle a little bit earlier, and Seattle has Cleveland, and Seattle has the Rams in Cleveland, and then with San Francisco, you just flip-flop them on weeks.
Like Cleveland Rams, there you go.
Yeah. So that, I think they're, in terms of, where they're going to be in the NFC and also what they may affect power rankings in the weeks ahead, those 2 games are going to kind of, separate.
If the Rams win both of those, then that settles that.
Pretty much. For sure. For sure.
So.
All right, gentlemen. Well, that wraps us up for week number 4 of the National Football League. I cannot wait for next weekend. My work schedule has changed. I now can make it for Sunday nights. I can see Monday night football. I can see Thursday night football. The fantasy gods, the sports gods have rained down on the Dukester. He's gotten himself a hell of a schedule work-wise, so I'm back in the saddle for my sports. I'm very happy. So we'll convene again next week and take another look at week number 5. But as we know, tomorrow night is a big night, especially here in Canada, where hockey is and always will be king of kings. The National Hockey League 2019-2020 season begins, and I had hoped to really been able to do a bit more of a preview show with it. Scheduling and work and all this stuff just has been a real grind to be able to get it. But we are going to improve upon our hockey coverage. I'm working on trying to get some guests to come in through Twitter that have connections that I'm starting to make, YouTube and stuff. So try to advance the show a little bit and have a little bit more fun with it. But for now, we are going to give our predictions and a few comments that might come along the way with regards to the upcoming season. So where are we here? NHL and the 2019-2020 predictions. And we are going to start with the Western Conference. And Bladesy, we're going to let you go first because this is T-Mac's bread and butter. He's our hockey resident guru. But off camera, before we come on, I don't know, Mac. He was impressing us with his knowledge, eh?
I defer to Danny Gallivan there. He knows it all.
Man, oh man, no, I'm still pissed off. I had to wear this damn hockey jersey in October.
I always wear jersey every month, so.
Oh, suck it up! Suck it up! Suck it up! All right. All right. So tell us, who do you see the 2 division winners in the Western Conference for this upcoming season? Who you got picked?
2 division winners. Okay. Well, all right. You just want the winners?
I just want the division winner. We're going to we'll do the division winners of each conference.
Right.
I mean, if you want to add other things in there, by all means, go ahead. But
all right. Oh, that's fine. Pacific, I got Vegas actually going to win the division.
Okay.
It's probably going to be pretty close between them and Calgary, I do believe. Calgary is obviously won the division last year and bowed out in the first round of the playoffs, like Tampa Bay did in the East. But you know what, Vegas, they got Mark Stone for the full year. Coming over from Ottawa. Vegas is. You got to buy into the hype, man. I thought it might be just a 1 year thing, but last year, they made the playoffs again. Got kind of screwed in the playoffs. Yeah. I think they might have a little chip on their shoulder this year. Calgary, Calgary's got a good team. Don't get me wrong. Goalie might be a little bit suspect, like it has been in the past. I think didn't they get Talbot, I think, from Edmonton? I don't know how that's much of an upgrade. What's the other guy?
Riddick.
Yeah. So it's going to kind of come down between the 2 of them, but Calgary's got a really good team for sure. But I'm going to go with Vegas in the Pacific. And then in the Central, I'm gonna do I don't know if you call it a homer pick or
are you going with the hometown?
I might be 1 year too early, or 2 years too early, but I'm gonna go with Team Nova Scotia with our boy Nate McKinnon and Ryan Graves from Yarmouth, and hopefully Shane Bowers at some point this year. We're going with there you go home. That's it. We're going with the Colorado Avalanche. They're going to win the Central and knock out the defending Stanley Cup champions. And they had a great year last year. Knocked off Calgary in the first round, wasn't it? They knocked off Calgary, right? Yeah, yep. In the first round of playoffs. Yep. That's a tough division. That's a tough division with Dallas and Nashville and St. Louis, obviously. And Winnipeg. Winnipeg's, we were talking about it beforehand, but I think all this, with Laine and Connor just signing. I mean, ask the Leafs how that worked out with Nylander signing late last year. He didn't have really a great year. With this Bufflin's backpacking across Europe. I believe, trying to find himself. I don't know what's going on with him. Their defense is just it looks kind of atrocious right now. I mean, I saw something today. They got one starting defenseman out of their top 6 that was in the lineup last year at this time, and so that's a little bit tough for Winnipeg. So I still have Winnipeg kind of eking into that last wild card, but we're going with Colorado to win that division.
Fair enough. So now we're going to go with T-Mac. Mac, how are you seeing the West kind of shake down from your perspective this year?
I for whatever reason kept coming back to Dallas as a team that underachieved, and when I look at adding Pavelski, Corey Perry, as much as he's a player you don't really like to play against, he's a bit of a pest, a bit of a dirty player, but if he is fully recovered, I think he's about to show people that I still have some good hockey left.
Mm-hmm.
The Niskanen, or Heiskanen, sorry, looks like a stud on defense. And, I mean, you already had Sagan, Ben, Radulov. If their offense comes through at all, they've got enough defense and get some goaltending. I'm really liking the Stars this year. And in the Pacific, this is where I wanted to go kind of stupid, just to make Bladesy happy because he's hoping to do that. And I almost went Arizona. I don't know, that they'd have to have everything go right, but then I've been against it. And then went with Calgary. I think they're battle tested. I think one of those 2 goalies is going to step up and give them enough. I think they've still got enough on defense. And I like what you said about a year too early, year too late. I think Calgary might have been a year too early last year, and this is the year that that Pacific Division isn't strong. I think Edmonton will be a little better. Arizona, I already said it'll be better, but San Jose, I think they're a year too late. I think they're still good. They got a lot of big names, but Calgary kept coming up to me. So
okay.
CAL and DAL, 2 division winners.
Gotcha. So you're kind of saying, with San Jose maybe a year too late, however you said that. But does the fact that Karlsson has a full year now under his belt in San Jose, he did deal with some injuries and stuff last year, him maybe more comfortable realizing this is where he's going to be. There's nothing up in the air, no contract and stuff. Do we see the Erik Karlsson that we saw in Ottawa show up in San Jose this year, do you think?
I think there's a good chance of it. I think you've got Karlsson and gap tooth there, Brent Burns, or no teeth, whatever we want to call him.
Yeah, that's a big gap.
You've got 2 studs. I think they're going to miss Pavelski more than they think. Evander Kane is a good. I don't know. I just think. I think they're going to be there, and it wouldn't surprise me if they won it. I don't know. Part of me, I just get tired of teams too, and then I look for the team. St. Louis has messed me up too. What St. Louis did, Duke, you called that. It starts to open my eyes, and when we get over to the other side on the Eastern Conference, I've got more St. Louis style thoughts. But yeah, I think you're right. I think Karlsson could, but I also don't know how, when you're sharing the ice time with a guy like Burns, is Karlsson ever going to be the numbers guy he was before, simply because he's got another guy stealing a bunch of those stats.
Right. And the last story with that, it's still out there, and I don't think it's going to. Doesn't look like Joe Thornton's going to get back there, is he?
Go ahead, Blades. He's your former Bruin, Joe Thornton. What do you think?
Was he going to what?
Is he going to get back with the? He's not signed. Any chance that he does sign with the Sharks, or are they moving on? You figure?
I'm sure they're moving on.
Yeah.
Until the injury, and they signed him in December for the half-a-year contract. And
yeah, I don't know. They're on the downslope, as T-Mac said, for sure. I think with Pavelski going and things like that. But like I said, I mean, that Pacific Division is not real strong.
No.
So there's a bunch of teams there. Arizona's obviously big improvement down there. See what Kessel can do down there.
Right on.
But
See what happens.
yeah.
All right, so I am going to share Bladesy sentiment with the Pacific. I'm going to go with the Knights. I think a full year with Stone there makes a huge difference. He's kind of he's like that Ryan O'Reilly for the Blues. He's just a gritty guy that you really want, especially when it gets playoff time. And as most people know, I'm not a huge European fan. I'm still that Don Cherry disciple of good old Canadian boys, and Stone is one of those guys that really represents that, being the hardcore, player that he is, can score, but he's gritty, and that's a lot for a team that 2 years ago was on the cusp of winning it. And like Blade said, I do think they kind of got the shaft there in the playoffs in that San Jose series and stuff. So I think there is motivation for them to win that division. A team that I'm going to say that I'm going to really keep an eye out for, and I call it a bit of a dark horse in terms of trying to make the playoffs. Maybe they're not a dark horse, but it could be a little stretch. I think the Vancouver Canucks are going to be somebody to kind of keep an eye on. They got a lot of young, exciting players. They've took care of some of their RFAs this year, which was good to see. And another year of Markstrom in net. I think he's going to improve his game. And I don't know, just something tells me Vancouver is a team to kind of keep an eye out. I definitely would be looking more out for Vancouver than I would be here in Edmonton, because this is, all due respect, they've made some good moves in the front office with Ken Holland. Tippett is a class guy, but Tippett's one of those guys, if he doesn't get the job done in the first 3 years, shit show starts to happen, it seems like, wherever he's gone before. In the Central, I'm going to stay with the team that won the Stanley Cup last year, the St. Louis Blues. I have no reason to believe why they can't take that division. They recently picked up Justin Falk from the Carolina Hurricanes, which is kind of looking like he might be a guy that could be taking over for Peter Langelo if he should choose to vault after this season, because he becomes a UFA, unrestricted free agent. And I don't know, the Bennington kid impressed me in the playoffs last year. He what he did after losses for St. Louis was very Ken Dryden-ish. The run that he had in the playoffs and things. So I think there's something to be said there. Again, adding Falk this year to a defensive core, which was definitely their strength last year and really helped them in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm going to go with St. Louis. I'm going to hedge my bets with the Blues. Again, call me crazy, but everybody called me crazy last year in the playoffs, and we all know how that one worked out. So
You going for the truck this year, dude?
Going for the truck. I got to have them friggin' Blues in there again this year. Going for the truck. All right, so I will continue. I'll just jump in over here to take that out, and we're going to the Eastern Conference. Now, here is where I'm really going to go out on a limb with one of my picks here, and I know it's probably going to get laughed at, but that's okay. I'm playing a long shot hunch that the Philadelphia Flyers are going to win the Metropolitan.
Oh, my Lord.
With a new coach, they got Alain Vigneault. Of course, Vigneault's been around a bit. Montreal, Vancouver. Where else has he been? The Rangers. So it's not like he doesn't have experience. Goaltending has been a big problem, and I think he even recently came out and said we've got to have better goaltending than what we've had, even what they were showing in preseason. But Carter Hart, I'm going to say the boy's going to learn to play the NHL game. They signed Paravov, man, these Russian names and stuff get me every time. But signed him to a new contract, $6 million a year for the next 6 years. And I think Giroux has another year or two left into him in that. So I'm going to go Philly in that division. I'm probably going to be made foolish by the end of the year, but that's going to be my pick. That's my long shot. In the other one, and I had to think long and hard, and it kills me to have to do this and even put it up on the screen, but I'm going to do it, and that is the Toronto Maple Leafs. I just think this could be the year they finally put things together. Some of their younger guys have definitely matured. Morgan Riley, another year for Marner, another year for Austin Matthews. I see Tavares is going to be named captain. Tyson Barrie, I think, is going to be a huge addition for Toronto. He kind of takes in over from Jake Gardiner. Maybe Tyson Barrie is a guy that can play in Toronto and can handle the pressure there. I know Gardiner went through an awful lot of heat and stuff in his time there. Fans really ridiculed him, rightfully so at times. But I think he's better than what they gave him credit for, and I think he's going to show that in Carolina. So I'm looking at the Leafs going in against Philadelphia for divisions there. And while we're on that line, who are we picking for the Stanley Cup? I got the Leafs winning the Cup this year, believe it or not, and they're going to beat the St. Louis Blues. Blues going to go to their second Cup, but they're going to fetch up against the Leafs. That's called going out on a line, gentlemen. So I want to see if either one of you.
Then we'll all have the Blues.
Then we'll all have the Blues because the country will shut down. The country will shut down.
That. So I had to do this stupid research for this, and I watched a little TSN and Sportsnet, and that's all I had here was how fucking Maple Leafs looking for a captain. Oh my God. Who fucking cares? They haven't had a captain in 3 years. You'd think it was the biggest thing ever.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Well, keep going.
Captain is.
Keep
like,
going.
Does that matter? Does that really matter? That don't fucking matter. They haven't even had one. It don't matter.
Well, keep going. Give us your picks while you're ranting.
Right? Yeah. Well, I'm not going out on the limb that you are. Let me tell you. So I ain't doing that shit. Oh, you got me pissed off now talking about the Leafs. I used to be like this about Montreal, but unfortunately, Mac, nobody worries about Montreal right now. Sorry. I know that was a cheap shot. I get it. I'm going chalky. I'm going Washington. I think Washington's still cream of the crop in that Metro division. Pittsburgh is they're getting older, I believe. Pittsburgh still make playoffs, still got a good team, but Washington there. I think Carolina might geek in there, but I got that. And how do you go against Tampa? Well, obviously Duke did, but how do you go against Tampa? They had 128 points last year, for crying out loud. And I don't think they got worse. So I'll go Tampa, but I do have Toronto finishing ahead of Boston. I will tell you that. So, and then I got Florida Islanders winning the wild card. I think Florida's going to be a little bit crazy this year. They got the new goalie, they got Bobrovsky, they got Quinville coaching them.
Yep.
You know what? Florida could be somebody to watch for sure. But no, I got Tampa, Washington. I guess I've got, like I told you, I'm going with my heart, not my head, and we got Colorado going to win the Cup this year, baby. Nate will bring it to Halifax. Ryan Graves will bring it to Yarmouth. Wow. It's going to be a fun summer.
So Colorado over Tampa Bay in the final. What else? You said something there I was going to comment on, but yeah, Florida's going to be interesting. The one thing I would say about your Tampa pick, and again, I did the Flyers thing totally just trying to be different. Tampa Bay, I think picking up Pat Maroon is going to be a huge pickup for him. There's a guy that, when he was here in Edmonton, their playoff run that they had a couple years ago where they got to the second round, but he was a big part of that. And then he gets traded to St. Louis, and they win the Cup there. So it seems like over time there's guys that start to find themselves, and they become players of playoffs. They're just guys that you constantly see getting numbers and impacting when it matters and stuff. So for that, I would give you, I could see where Tampa Bay could possibly go all the way to the Stanley Cup final and stuff like that. So Mac, I guess you're kind of partly with Bladesy on some of this. You too went with Tampa Bay, I believe.
Yeah, I didn't do very well for your programming there, Duke, because I'm the same too as Bladesy. I think it's going to be the Tampa Bay revenge tour. What you said with Maroon, if Vasilevsky stays healthy, I think Tampa Bay just rolls through the entire conference. They are just so deep, so much offense. I don't know. I see just one mission is to get through and get to the playoffs and be ready to just make up for what they did. Washington, I picked almost by default. They're getting near the end. They're kind of like San Jose, but just not quite. I think they've still got enough there. And I don't see anybody like I see in New Jersey that with Wayne Simmons, with PK Subban, with better goaltending, I see a bunch of teams underneath the Florida. No, Florida's on the other side. I just Carolina, like just a bunch below. But to me, it's Washington and Tampa Bay that are the class of the conference. As much as I hate to say it, Don Sweeney a few years ago made some great picks, and you've got some great young depth there. I have to, for Mike Link's sake and my sake, I'm kind of how I was feeling about the Habs with a bunch of things coming together. That Nick Suzuki, Thomas Tatar, and draft pick for Max Pacioretty trade, I think is going to pay off with huge dividends. Suzuki's had an awesome training camp. Kotkaniemi's 20 pounds heavier. I'm really excited about the depth. We don't have that standout superstar player, but I'm really excited about the forward depth. A full season with Shea Weber and Price. I'm so tired of hearing about Weber and Price being so old. Henrik Lundqvist has shown that you can be in your mid to late 30s. Some guy in Vegas, Fleury, has shown you can still be a great goaltender. I'm really excited about the Habs prospects. I wish the Tampa, Toronto, and Boston are so strong ahead of them that they're going to have to deal with that. But there hasn't been this, as much as Bladesy was poking this cheap shot. It wasn't a cheap shot. It's been tough times. But there's a lot of depth in Montreal right now. There's a lot of prospects, a lot more hope. And Julien, my God, he was a good coach at one time. Our power play cannot be that bad again.
No.
The law of averages says so. I'm really hopeful for the Habs and hoping that they can get that playoff spot and be a tough out for somebody in the first round.
So has Montreal done anything to, like, with regards to that power play? Because I know when Julien was in Boston, that was something I can remember one playoff round there. It was like, at least if they're on the power play, at least I know they're not going to be scored upon for 2 minutes. That's the way my approach was, because they just couldn't score. So it seems like it's an iffy proposition in terms of power play wherever Julien goes. So has they brought any, like an assistant coach in or something that can kind of work the power play, have different approaches with it, or it is what it is?
It sounds like from the message boards it's still Muller that's doing that, and he's had power play success in the past. Watching that team so many times, it's almost like it was impossible for it to be that bad. Like, just anything that could go wrong on the power play went wrong. So to me, the law of averages, like when you've got Shea Weber, when you've got Jeff Petrie, you got two good point men, and then there's enough offensive guys to put out. I think middle of the pack would just be by default, just simply because they can't be that bad again. And if that's the power play, then how many more points? They only missed the playoffs by 2 or 3, and that was with half a season of Weber.
Yeah.
So the glass is half full.
Right on. So another
thing. And then in the finals, I've got Tampa. I said over Calgary. I couldn't decide between Calgary and Dallas, so Tampa over one of those two. I hope it's Calgary just because the Canadian in me would love to have another Canadian team in the finals again, if not winning it. But Tampa, I just think this is the revenge tour, and they're just going to whitewash everyone on the way.
Yeah, well, there's plenty of evidence for that, and I can back that argument for sure. One of the things like last year with the Bruins, and I think what helped them get as far as they did, obviously having Tampa Bay get knocked out the way they did, certainly opened the door for them to make the progress that they did. But I also believe, there seems to be, or maybe you can comment a bit more on it. Are we starting to see a little bit of a philosophy with goaltending now, where having that qualified backup, getting in way more games than backups normally do? Because I think what hurt Montreal a bit, I don't think it's the age on Carey Price. I think when you're coming down the stretch and you're playing 27 of 29 games, that's a hell of a lot to ask of anybody. And I think what made Rask have his best playoff he ever has is that they had Halak, who played almost as many games as Rask, and there's an argument where you could have had Halak start the playoffs for the Bruins. So I see Montreal's gone out. They went and got Kincaid from Jersey, free agent, or however they got him, trade. Do you see him getting substantially more playing time? Will Montreal look at that and say, you know what, maybe there's something happening there in Boston? I think somebody else had done that prior. They were mentioning it at the fantasy draft last night. There was another team that in the playoffs 2 years ago. Kind of split their goaltending in the season, and then it helped the regular to go forward. Do you see that happening in Montreal, or is it going to be, sink or swim, everything on Carey again?
They say it's going to happen. To me, I think that whole story is a good story to tell in reverse. The goalie in me, as long as you're not banged up, I'm sorry, you can get out there and play 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, and be just fine. Like these guys are in better shape than the guys were in our youth.
Yeah.
And those guys played 70 games and were just fine to carry into the playoffs. So I don't know if Rask had struggled, they would have blamed it on the fact that he didn't play enough going down the stretch. So I find this story is always a convenient narrative to say whichever way you want. So
reverse engineer. Exactly.
Kincaid can't be worse than Niemi. So whether he plays 10 games or 20 games, that's better for the Habs. But no, I'm like Carey Price from November on or December on was second in wins and had a .925 save percentage. I'm happy with Carey if he plays 72 or 52. So
right on. Well, gentlemen, as we said, the season starts tomorrow night. Big night for a lot of people in Canada as hockey comes back onto the scene, and definitely going to be a year to watch for. I know for us as Bruin fans, we didn't expect what happened last year. To be honest with you, I kind of thought maybe this would be the year, anticipating that to happen here. I think, Mac, you're right. Sweeney has impressed me as a GM. I know when he first got hired, I kind of was like, I don't know. I kind of thought he was still of the Harry Sinden type guy, but he's made some good deals, and he's utilizing their cap the best he can. The two signings with Carlo and McAvoy kind of work really well with some of the other contracts that are going to come off the books for them. So I don't know, Boston repeating. The Red Sox tried doing that standing pat, and that didn't really work out too well this year. So, and there's all kinds of reasons for it. But hockey, I don't know. I don't think you can always stand completely pat. I think you have to make some tweaks here and there, but who knows what happens throughout the season. As long as they got the phenom, the freak of nature, Big Z, Zdeno, we're always going to be in good shape. Right, Bladesy?
That's right. And before we leave hockey, can we just all agree that Ottawa may win 3 games this year? What the hell are they doing? What the hell is that? Are they doing it,
That's a Miami job. That's a Dolphin job.
Holy shit, man. Like Drake Batherson could be their best player. Kid from the Valley here.
Yeah. It's going to be bad.
It's ugly, man. It's ugly. Yeah. Of course, Toronto plays in tomorrow night, game 1. So they're going to come out and kill them, and everybody. Then they're going to plan the parade like they always do in Toronto.
No, I think Ottawa could come out and do the surprise on opening night and then lose 10 in a row. And one final hockey thing, just in honor of Mr. Lafleur, who had quadruple bypass surgery and is supposedly doing well. Guy, I hope you're doing well. Just 1 pack this week, okay, not 2. And
1 pack a day, you mean? 1 pack a day, you mean?
Exactly.
Lafleur is only one of 3 people that I would have ever paid $1,000 for a ticket to go watch perform. He was one of a kind for sure and stuff. So, yeah. All right, gentlemen, we are moving off the National Hockey League, and tonight, as we mentioned before, the MLB, Major League Baseball playoffs begin in earnest with the wild card games. The first one coming up tonight. Washington hosting the Milwaukee Brewers, minus last year's MVP Christian Yelich. So, gentlemen, how do you see this one turning out tonight? How do you see tomorrow night's Oakland and Seattle? We'll start with tonight, National League wild card, Brewers, Nationals. Bladesy, who you got in this one tonight?
Well, first of all, let's say I hope everybody stuck around for an hour for the main event. The only sport that really matters, baseball. Anyway, no, I just had to say that. Anyway, first, we got to say, Duke, we got to eat a little crow on our last show. I don't think T-Mac was even there, but we're talking about, I think we were trying to determine who was going to make the playoffs, and we all kind of wrote off the Brewers because Yelich was gone and all that kind of thing. They were actually 3 games back and a game back of the Cubs, and then that following weekend, the Cubs shit the bed against St. Louis and lost 4 straight, and then it was all history. But so you got to give the Brewers, without Yelich, went 21-4 down the stretch. Without the National League MVP, went 21-4. You gotta give them credit for what they have done to make that playoff. That being said, they're going up against Max Scherzer in Washington. You know, the Bulldog, whatever you want to. You know, this guy is a gamer. He is. He is the man. I mean, he hasn't been totally healthy all year, but I have to give this one to Washington for sure. I think saw something today that the Brewers' top 4 hitters, Moustakas, Kane, who's the other 2? The catcher, was it? Grandal.
Grandal, yeah.
Grandal and Braun. They're 4 guys, lifetime against Scherzer, batting .086. Something like 7 for 77 or something like that in their career. So, good luck to them. That's all I got to say. Washington has a shitty bullpen, but, you know, Scherzer can definitely be one of those guys that could go 7 or 8 innings and not even worry about it. So, just got to go with Scherzer here. I mean, Washington is one of those teams that every other year they've been picked to win the division. You know, this year they weren't. They lost Harper. They kind of were, you know, and they were 19-31. Starting off the season and came back and made the playoffs. So it's kind of a different story for them. They're not the favorite anymore, and maybe that will help them out. So I'm going with Washington tonight. You want both, or you want just National League?
We'll just National League. Okay. So back, if there's anybody that can come up with a reasonable explanation as to why Milwaukee minus their MVP could defeat Washington, and I know the Expo in you probably is not going to want to go against the Nationals. Is there any reason to believe that Milwaukee could win this game? Is it because it's just one game? That chance is there? Not happening?
Max Scherzer, Brandon Woodruff.
Yeah,
they could let Woodruff pitch from a mound that's 6 inches higher with a different baseball, and the batter's blindfolded. And I still like Max Scherzer against the Brewers. It's too bad about Yelich. I mean, that excuse is always going to hang out there for them. But Mad Max wasn't himself down the stretch. He probably cost me a few $100s in a fantasy pool because he laid an egg that final week that might have made a difference. But I can't see. Washington should win this one easy.
Right on.
Sorry,
I also saw that. They said that Strasburg is totally available. He's rested enough that if anything should freakishly happen, he's available. And also Corbin has a couple innings that they could work him. So to kind of try to address Blaze's comment about no bullpen.
They got to have all hands on deck for this one, man.
Sure.
It's either do or die. Right? I mean, their bullpen was, I think, 5.77 ERA, something like that. Wow. Worst in the league by far. It's like...
They're due.
Not good.
They're due.
No, they're due. Yeah. Us as Red Sox fans think we had a bad bullpen. Well, Washington, look at their bullpen. They still made the playoffs.
All right, well, moving on. Tomorrow night we have the Oakland A's hosting the Tampa Bay Rays. Who would have ever thought? I mean, Oakland you could see because Oakland has this, Moneyball, Billy Bean. It still exists. It still has its place. That's who I'm kind of the bandwagon right now. I'm jumping on the Oakland bandwagon, so obviously I'm tipping my hand as to who I think is going to win tomorrow night. T-Mac, I'm going to let you begin on this one. Obviously, Tampa Bay coming from the East, where both of us are fans of other Eastern Division teams in the American League. Is this Tampa Bay team really for real, or has it just totally been smoke and mirrors and just lucky that some other teams had bad years?
No, they're for real. I mean, I kind of think that if still pining away for my Expos to come back, both of these teams are kind of like the Expos teams I used to cheer for. Better than the sum of their parts, and other than those Larry Walker, Tim Raines years when we had some true stars, just scrappy teams. I wish the Yankees could have some kind of scandal that could have got them out of the postseason, and both of these teams could have made it in. No, I think Tampa's for real. I think Oakland's for real. Morton and Manaea as the pitching matchup. Manaea
only came on late, but was just awesome those 4 starts that I think he had. And Morton was somehow 16-6 with a 3 ERA, like almost exactly 3. So it's kind of a toss-up to me. I kind of hope for Tampa Bay.
Maybe because they may be my Expos in a couple of years. I don't know. So, but I'm happy with either team, and whichever one of them wins. I mean, they get Houston, so holy crap, that's not fair. My only goal in the West is that the Yankees go out in as quick as they can, because the Minnesota, Tampa, Oakland, I'd be happy with any of them to win the pennant, and Houston. I don't know. I don't dislike Houston. They're a good team with good players, and yeah, so the Yankees can't lose enough, and I'd probably go the Rays.
Okay, sounds good. Lazy, what you got? I know you're like me. You just think that's a total atrocity going on down there in Tampa Bay, and it just really looks bad on the game and stuff. But nonetheless, we do have a game to be played. How you see that one shaking out?
Well, let me just say, thank God this game is being played in Oakland and not in Tampa Bay, so they could play in front of Dick Vitale and 48 of his closest friends or whatever that's going to show up in Tampa Bay if they happen to move on to the next round of the playoffs.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Go to the Ringer. They've got a really cool article on Tropicana Field. It won't necessarily change your mind, but it's a really interesting look at the baseball experience from one fan's. It was pretty cool.
I'm sure it is. And speaking from a man, I was there for game number 1 in 1998. Tampa Bay Rays against oh my God, I forgot to even know. That's how it was. I forgot to even know who they were playing. But game number 1, I was down in Sarasota for spring training, and actually we ended up getting tickets to game number 1. That was fun. But I don't think it's gotten any better since 1998 in there. But anyway, that being said, yeah, Tampa Bay. I mean, you got to give them credit, man. You know what? Everybody said it was Joe Madden. Guess what? No, it wasn't Joe Madden. That's they just bring in the players and they can compete. They compete with the Red Sox and the Yankees and these high market teams. But this is their first. I believe this is the first playoff since 2013. So it's not like they're always kind of around, but they haven't been there lately. Yeah. Charlie Morton came out of nowhere. He was a below average pitcher, I believe, in Pittsburgh or wherever he was. He was with a couple teams, I think, and then went to Houston. And as they do in Houston, the pitcher whispers turn that guy around at 35 years old, and here he is, an ace again. Mm-hmm. So to be able to pick this game is, I mean, like you said, it is a crapshoot, right? But Manaea's a good pitcher. He just was hurt all year. The A's, like Duke said, the A's do the same thing, man. They're low payroll and they get the job done. They're there more than they're not. Seems like they were in this wild card game last year against the Yankees and ended up getting beat by the Yankees in New York. So, I have to go with Oakland. Almost for the same reason as T-Mac wants to go for the Rays, is that I want to give Tampa as little incentive to go to games as possible so this team gets moved to Montreal as soon as possible, as far as I'm concerned. And not because I'm an Expo fan, but because I think if it stays in the AL East, this is well documented. I think if this team goes to Montreal and they've got a bunch of games against the Red Sox and the Yankees and the Blue Jays, I think they'll thrive. And me as a 50-something-year-old, whenever this happens, will gladly make the 12-hour drive up to Montreal for the weekend and be a little hungover on the way home. So, but I gotta go with Oakland. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Oakland here. Like you said, it's almost an impossible task. Whoever wins this game to go into Houston, like you said, it's hard to. You can't hate the Houston Astros because they did things the right way. They didn't go out and get high-priced free agents. I mean, everybody says about Verlander. Verlander was after the trade deadline pickup. He had to go through waivers that day. People forget about that. He was pretty much on the scrap heap and ended up getting there, and now he's turned his whole career around. For this game tomorrow, we'll go Oakland.
Okie dokie. All right, so we'll finish up with this. Clearly, we don't know who's definitely going to win these games. Do you guys see any one of these winners being able to knock off Houston and LA. If you had to pick one team that might knock off one, who would you pick? T-Mac.
I don't see any in the American League, mainly because of my hatred for the Yankees. Minnesota hits, so I guess if they get enough pitching, they could. But no, I see Houston being fine. I don't know. In the National League, there's something about Atlanta. There's something about that lineup that I maybe it's just from the fantasy season watching them that if they get the pitching, I give them a chance. But no, I don't know. I hate sounding like a chalk guy. I pride myself on thinking outside of the box, but LA and Houston were the teams they were for a reason. Mm-hmm. And with the pitching both of those teams got, it's going to require so much of the other team to come out ahead of it. So.
How about you, Blaze? You see anybody? You see either winner of these wild card games having a stab at Houston or LA, or is this just a one and done?
Well, I will say, as I sit here and watch, as we've been touting the Senators against Milwaukee, Yasmani Grandal has hit a 2-run homer off of Scherzer.
Oh wow!
That's kind of shitty for what we're talking about. But anyway, with that being said, obviously it's the first inning. I still think, I don't think Milwaukee has a chance against the Dodgers, but I do think, and we say about the bullpen, but with the Washington top three pitchers, and Scherzer and Corbin and Strasburg, I think they can match up against the Dodgers for sure. And the Dodgers don't have the greatest bullpen. Kenley Jansen's a shell of himself. Yeah. He's definitely not lights out like he was 2 or 3 years ago. So I think both of them have bullpen trouble. So I do believe if anybody has a chance of these wildcard games to win the next series against the Juggernauts, I do believe Washington does, just because of their top 3 pitchers. St. Louis and the Braves, they're going to be a little bit. They're good teams, obviously, and so anything can happen, but. That's probably your next question. Who you got? And personally, I'm going chalk with Dodgers Astros, but I think Washington can give them a run if they can get out of this game, but they haven't come to bat yet. So 2-0.
The only thing I'll say, Bladesy, before I say the same thing as Dodgers Astros, is the Dodgers bullpen wasn't great, but when you're going in the playoffs and you can put Urias and Stripling, those guys that were kind of pitching half a game each, I think the bullpen suddenly becomes a lot better.
Yeah, true. That is true.
And then you look at what Boston did last year with their starters and all that, although jury's still out as to whether that's the way to go about it. Some seem to think that affected, the Red Sox pitching performance this year.
Flags fly forever.
That's right.
Fly forever.
Take your chance. Take your chances when you can. Definitely didn't hurt Sale. Sale was hurt before that. So if anybody's blaming that on, blaming this, why Sale is hurt. Sale's been hurt all of his life, crying out loud. So.
Seems that way. Yeah. Well, I'm going to take a stab in the dark. I do and I don't. I did the Flyers tonight. I think that's going out far enough.
Yeah.
Picking Philadelphia. Geez, I'll tell you, I don't know, St. Louis, man, there's something about that organization. They're good when it matters. And they just know how to win games in the playoffs. So I'm kind of thinking maybe Houston, St. Louis, revisit that. Remember that great series back in, was it 2004? Houston and St. Louis, wasn't it? Wasn't that the one where, what's his name, David Freese hits the walk-off against Houston? And that's the year the Red Sox won the World Series.
That was St. Louis, Texas.
Oh, St. Louis, Texas.
Yeah. Houston was shitty.
Right.
Houston, St. Louis?
Yes.
Have you just in case you brought this up, our MLB preview show back in March. Take a look. Can you see that? Houston over St. Louis series.
You picked that?
Right there. Houston over St. Louis in World Series.
Who picked that?
I did. I just wrote down mine. I don't have your fellas. Houston over St. Louis in World Series.
I'll have to go back and look at that episode. Find that, dig that out.
Gotta take a look. Yep. There you go. But I'm going to take Houston over Dodgers. But
Right
anyway.
on.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
gentlemen. Well,
Just
we've gone 80 minutes tonight, longer than I kind of thought we were going to go, but we did do our bit of a preview show, and we've kind of expanded on our NFL program now with the power rankings and stuff. So, anyway, great show tonight. A lot of good points made. We're going to cut her off here now because we got to get in front of that TV and watch this game tonight. See if the Brewers don't make us all eat friggin' crow, which is kind of looking like the way it is right at the moment. It's tough. So
long way to go. That's
right
good.
on, right on.
Yeah, watch it now.
Yeah, yeah. All right, guys. Thanks so much for your time tonight, and we'll see everybody back here a week from tonight. Tuesday night seems to be a night that's going to kind of work out for most of us. If there's a change in programming, I definitely will post through YouTube and on our Facebook page, Sunday Night Sports, guys. So thank you so much for watching us, and go Patriots. See you later.
Gotcha.